This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's Partnership Coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Phil Masiello from Crunch Growth. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. Did I butcher your last name? I should have asked before we started.
You did good. You did good.
Beautiful. Are you Italian? Is that
Absolutely.
An Italian last name?
Absolutely.
Okay, I get spotted a mile away.
Sono Italiano.
We thought we were Italian growing up, and then I took a 23andMe test and found out we're not even a lick of Italian.
Oh, I took
so it's unfortunate.
I took a 23andMe, and I'm 99.9% Italian.
Whoa! Well, good thing you're not 100 because there'd be some problems there. That's incredible.
Well, over the years, right? Italy has been invaded by a million different the Greeks and the Moors, and so there's always some dilution there. But
yeah, of course. I mean, 100 would be concerning. There'd be something going on there that you would probably not want to be a part of. So that's pretty nice. But yeah, no, I think those tests are really, really cool. I was very excited about mine. But yeah, we found out we were not Italian. My mom took it as a personality trait her whole life, and we found out that grandma lied. So it's very, very funny.
Yeah.
Well, could you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey to this point in your career?
Oh, boy. I'll try and do this as quick as possible.
Everyone's always concerned about that. Don't worry. You can take as long as you'd like.
Well, I've told the story so many times that it just seems like it's, just tedious, almost like people don't really care. But
I care.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I started my first business when I was 27 years old. It was in retail, and it was an absolute total beyond a doubt disaster. And I wasn't what I didn't have the skill set I thought I had. I was a terrible leader. I was a terrible manager of process. I feel sorry for the people who worked for me at that time. But nonetheless, 3 years later, I sold it. And the money that I did get out of it, I took and I moved. I was in New York, and I grew up in New York, and I moved to Maryland, and I went to University of Maryland for graduate school. And I didn't go to graduate school because I thought I needed more education. I went to graduate school because I needed to change my way of thinking, which I did. And while I was down here, I got involved with a specialty food chain that had 2 stores. I invested in it, and we grew that business, and I learned a lot about entrepreneurship and running a business at scale and building it. We wound up growing it to about 12 stores in Washington. Then we made a couple of acquisitions up in New York and Connecticut. And eventually we sold it. And I took that money and I started another company called the Daily Market. And this was around 25 years ago. And, at that time, I've always been a consumer-focused marketer, always been understanding of consumers. And at that time, right, everything was about the internet. We didn't have the internet bubble burst yet, but I thought, I wonder if we could sell food on the internet. And so we set up a website to go along with these stores, and we started to sell food. And at that time, like FedEx, UPS, it wasn't really set up to handle what was to come. So we struggled a bit on that side, but nonetheless, we scaled to over 1 million in the first year. And there wasn't a lot of advertising online back then. It was all pretty much, if you had a right URL, you could go a long way. And there weren't a lot of sites out there. But anyway, we attracted the attention of a supermarket chain. and they bought us because at that time nobody knew, nobody understood websites. Everybody thought, these things were going to change their lives, which eventually they did. So we got acquired, and the company that acquired us used that website to turn it into their home shopping business. And I worked for them for a couple of years, and then it wasn't really for me. I'm too entrepreneurial. I'm not good in a corporate world, and they were a multi-billion-dollar supermarket chain, and it just didn't work for me and my psyche. I was too many headbutting things with senior management, of which I was part of, but over just looking at statistics and looking at numbers and KPIs. I was more focused on the customer, and they were more focused on transactions. And so, anyway, I left there, and I had the opportunity to found a beauty business with a woman named Carol Alt, who used to be a model back in the 80s. And we started this business called Raw Beauty. She was a raw foodist, and she had written several books on the whole raw food movement. And so we built a skincare and a beauty line around her, and we launched it on the shopping channels, HSN in the United States, the shopping channel in Canada. We were over in Europe, and then we also were on our own website, but we were also one of the first brands to get onto the Amazon marketplace after Bezos opened it up to everything other than books, CDs, music, and all that, toys. They were always on there, but then he opened it up to sellers. And I looked at it as another opportunity to sell. And this was back in 2006. It was a whole different world at Amazon. And so, but nonetheless, we scaled. We wound up eventually, we were in Ulta, we were in Sephora, we were in some of the international retailers, and we wound up selling that business after a number of years. And while we were doing that business, I had this idea to do a shaving business. We were really going to do it to sort of be another outlet of Raw Beauty, but we decided that it was a bit bigger than what we were thinking. So after we sold Raw Beauty, we started shaving business. And the core difference between us and everybody else that was out there, we were out there before everybody else, but the core difference for us was that we had the only American-made razor. Everybody else was getting their razors from overseas, and we had ours. So, there were only two American-made razors in this country. One was Gillette and one was Schick. And Gillette's never going to, private label anything. So, and so we did that for a number of years, and we had some really good people around us. We had John Scully, who used to be the CEO at Apple. He was the guy who supposedly fired Steve Jobs back in the 80s. We had Michael Phelps involved. We had some other folks involved, and it became a hot category. And, we were getting overtures every week, and we wound up selling. I thought it was premature, but anyway, we wound up selling nonetheless. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And Energizer came to us, who was supplying our razors at the time. It was Energizer. Now it's called Edgewell. And they said, look, we don't know anything about direct to consumer. We don't do anything. We sell to supermarkets, club stores, mass marketers, and we need somebody who understands direct to consumer. And so we started helping them in that world. And that was sort of the foundation of Crunch Growth. And in the beginning, we were just handling strictly the marketing on Amazon, marketing on e-commerce, advertising, etc. I'm not a developer, but we kept having to build websites, not just for them, but for other clients. So I wound up partnering and wound up merging with a development house, which we're still together. We have an office outside of Michigan, outside of Detroit. And then, then we started building on it, and then we wound up doing more social media because then social media really started to kick in with when Reels started to come along, and instead of Instagram in the beginning was just posting images, and then they opened it up to Reels, and then TikTok, and then YouTube Shorts, and so we started to get out of our expertise, right? Because our core expertise was really creating great commercials, great video, great ads, things like that. and we wound up merging with a social media firm, and so we have an office in New York as well, and so but we do a lot of, and that was sort of what's grown us over the years, and we do a lot of today, a lot of work with video assets, and on top of that, we do a lot of work on CTV and OTT channel advertising because the costs have come down so much. And when I was doing Raw Beauty and when I was doing razors, we were doing a lot of traditional television advertising, which to
Mhm.
me always drove me crazy because it's so unreliable and so untrackable. And you would have these media buyers telling you, oh, you have to put your brand on this channel and this channel, and everybody wants a Super Bowl commercial, which it just was ridiculous. And I figured out a different way to do it. Um, and then when connected TV came along on OTT channels, right? If you don't know what that is, right? You're advertising on anybody who's connected, whether you're on Netflix, Hulu, whatever.
Mhm.
But it's going through a demand side platform, so you can highly target everybody. So your ads are showing up to the right audience, and it's trackable. You're using pixels. You can see who's interacted with the ad. They come back to the site. You can track it. It's just a beautiful thing. And so, but we were good at traditional television, so we're even better at connected TV over OTT channels.
Mhm.
And so that's sort of a big focus for us, where we're different than others in that is that we can help build a script. We can help lay out your creative. We have partners, both coasts, that do really, really good creative stuff for a lot of really up and coming brands that either we've worked with or they work with. And so the ads work and they become more effective. So that's sort of how we are today. That's sort of the path. And, so I do it and I have fun.
Well, it's good that you have fun, but it's also an interesting journey. It's kind of cool to have that experience with different businesses because now that you work with them and do that, it's like you have not only the experience of the inner workings of the business, but you also are able to understand how to cater for different types of businesses.
Yeah. One of the one of the things I say all the time to a lot of our clients is, I'll say, "Look, I don't think you should do this," or "I don't think you should do that." And I'll say, "It's not because I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's gonna work, and I'm not
Mhm.
telling you this, I'm just picking it out of the air. I'm telling you this because I wasted $10 million doing that, or I
Mhm.
wasted, this, and so I'm telling you to save you because I don't think it's gonna work." What one of the first questions, because we are very picky about who we work with, because we can't work with sellers. We can't work with somebody with a selling mentality. I
Mhm.
don't care how big your business is. There's a big difference between a brand mentality and a selling mentality. And we don't work with sellers because they're transactional. They're thinking about, you know, I need to spend $1 and I want to get back 250. And that's just not a sustainable model. Brand building is a sustainable model. Making a connection with your customers is a sustainable model. And so we prefer that. But so the first question when we get on a call with anybody is, with any prospective client is, tell me what makes you better or what makes you different than your competitors. Because if you can't answer that question and you're just the same, well, then you might as well just drop your price, because if that's all you can say is that we're the same as this. And it's amazing to me how many brands cannot answer that question very well. And I'm not talking about small startups. I think startups have a better answer to that question than brands that are in that, 50 to $100 million range, who think that, they got there because of, doing affiliate marketing or doing this or doing that, and, sort of a transactional mode. And they think that, no, I do have a brand, but you're like, okay, well, you just keep raising money and that's what's sustaining you. I don't think you're really building a brand. And they don't, people don't want to hear that, but yeah.
No, I think you're 100% correct with that. I think I definitely resonate with the startup mentality as well because I think that startups almost need to have a clear definition of who they are
Yeah.
because if they don't, then it's not going to be successful in any way. You can't have a wishy-washy idea of what you want to be, because how are you going to get employees on that kind of mentality to work for this company that doesn't even know who they are? But also, how are you going to get money to support your ideology or whatever you want to create? That's startups need to have that definitive answer, and they can adjust over time of maybe changing who they are or what they want to become. But I do agree that sometimes even a company that starts as a startup and it gets to this point where they're no longer defined as that, I think sometimes people do lose that definitive what are we, and they kind of compare more to competitors and all these things. And it's important to acknowledge your competitors and compare to an extent, but you want to have something different that sets you aside from these people that do the same thing that you do or do something similar. And that's, I think, the most important, to have this clear identity than just, doing something better too, is not always going to be a good selling point. Like, people don't know that you're doing something better until they use your service, but you have to get them to use your service in the first place in order to know that you're better.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. Certainly, we do a lot with startups too, because I love startups because I'm a startup kind of guy. I mentor a lot of young entrepreneurs at the University of Maryland School of Entrepreneurship. So I love that community, and I love the energy, and I love the thought process and breaking new ground. But you're 100% right. And sometimes startups do have a very clear definition of who they are and who they want to be. But you're right. What happens is people get so tied up as they grow with the competitors that they wind up starting to look like the competitors, and then the world becomes homogeneous, and that's not good. And so, you have to always exploit what makes you different. And it's so cliche, and we've heard it a million times, but the reality is there's a lot of people out there that still don't understand who they are, what they are, and how they're different. There's a woman named Sally Hogshead. I don't know if you ever heard of her, but she has a book that I think everybody should read, every marketer should read, because she focuses on, how to be different and how to be unique. And she's a marketer from way back. She's very active on LinkedIn as well. And I think she's just tremendous, some of the things that she comes up with. And she's helped me out in the past with some of our businesses. And she's just, and she breaks it down that essentially, you can be better, you can be different, you can be better and different. And that's really the ultimate, but it's hard to get there. But you're right. Being better than somebody can be quantified. And yes, you have to get people to buy, but that's the sort of opportunity to get that message across today, I think, is better, or I don't want to say easier, but it exists better than it did 10 years ago, because today we have micro influencers, and as a strategy, micro influencers can help build your brand. Macro influencers, big ones, I'm not a big fan of, because I've never been able to get a decent return, and they come off as inauthentic, and everybody knows they're just doing it for money. But micro influencers,
I 100% agree.
Yeah, micro influencers, I think you can really do a good job. And I have a lot of friends that have some businesses, and we have a lot of clients actually that are doing things on TikTok, not paid, just being creative, that are selling product. And it's amazing to me. And we've been very active on it over the last 2 years because of the opportunities we see with it.
I personally trust, this has definitely come up before, where me personally, I spend whatever time on TikTok. I'm Gen Z. I outing myself. But okay. I personally trust, when I'm looking for a product, or even if I'm not looking for a product, I trust a micro influencer more than a macro influencer, because a macro influencer, my assumption, and this could be right or wrong, but I think for the majority, are getting paid a large sum to advertise this product. I don't know if they actually enjoy this product. A micro influencer I think especially if they have a leg to stand on what they believe and a product in which they actually support or like, they have more to lose.
Yeah.
They have their audience to lose. A macro influencer can advertise a poor product and still have a following after that, after whatever scandal that may occur from people realizing that this is a bad product.
Yeah.
Whereas a micro influencer can lose their entire following in one fell swoop because of a scandal. And I
Yeah.
think that that's what I kind of weigh in my mind of like, is this worth it for this influencer to promote a bad product or a bad service when they themselves don't support it? Like I believe in someone who is smaller that is advertising something that they actually care about. Whereas I don't trust a macro influencer. I don't trust
Yeah.
the celebrities at all.
Oh, no. Well, there was a study done because I think a couple of years ago, I think it was Ashton Kutcher had the most followers on Twitter, X, and so did when Nick Cannon was married to what's her name, Mariah Carey,
Mhm.
and I remember that somebody did a study and tracked how many times like Ashton Kutcher posted something about a product, but it never sold, like nothing happened. And I remember with Nick Cannon, there was he he had gotten a Porsche from a Porsche dealership on Long Island, and the part of the deal was that he would just blow it up on his X Twitter, which he did, but the guy didn't sell
Mhm.
one car out of it. And that
Who is
said to
gonna
me,
buy a Porsche because they saw a celebrity have a Porsche? They can't afford the Porsche.
yeah, but to me, it's like, I don't, it just, it doesn't come across as authentic. I'd rather have 100 micro influencers talking about my product, right,
Mhm.
than one or two big ones, because the 100, that's more, it's more depth, and people are going to see, that product more, and they're going to react to it, and they're going to say, well, there's 100 people or 200 people talking about this. And we actually have an equation that we work with with brands when we tell them, because you can spend, right, you can spend tens of thousands of dollars on advertising, or you can send your product for free to this
To a bunch of
influencer, to this
mhm.
macro influencer, set them up with a code so that every time that you sell a product that they generated, they can make money on it, right? So I'm not paying them, they're getting paid based on their sales. And then all of a sudden, that's cheaper conversion cost than running an ad. And so you can't really say no to it when you look at the numbers. And we have plenty of numbers to substantiate it. The issue that we see is sometimes we'll say we'll manage it for you, and they go, no, we can do it internally, and then they just go after the worst influence, and it's not going to work,
Yeah.
because I don't see you're selling a snack food and you attach to a woodworker. I'm not so sure where the connection is. So, you know,
Yeah, you have to pick the right person as well. Obviously, they have to be already involved in that space. Like if it's a makeup
sure.
product, like people have to have you have to have some reputability. You don't have to be a huge person, but you have to have at least some kind of the audience has to trust them to a level.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I think that's why micro influencers work so effectively because they're more normal. Like they're more normal people that people can relate
Yeah.
to, whereas celebrities or macro influencers are this larger than life entity that people don't trust because they're probably hiding their identity on part of their identity on social media. I'm sure everyone is to a level, but a micro influencer seems to be more of a trustworthy real person.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just that's a dynamic that people actually trust. I would hope more than a celebrity, at
Yeah,
least
they
me
do.
personally, that's how I resonate.
No, they do. And that's why it works so well. Right. The consumer is the one who trusts. And it's, again, it's less expensive than doing ads. I'm not against ads. We do a lot of ads. We spend a lot of money on ads for our clients, and we're good at it. But to me, ads are a support mechanism. Ads are not the be all end all. There's all these other things that you have to do. And we have too many times people come with, oh, I just want to run ads. Well, you can just run ads, but I don't know what that's going to get you. And I'm not against ads. We run a ton of them. We're doing them now. I mean, through this holiday season, my God, we spend a lot of money, and we're doing a bunch of television, CTV and OTT channel advertising, and it works. It works really well, but it works as a combined piece to everything else that you're doing. Because when you start to study the customer, when the customer hears about your product, the first place they go is your website, and they're looking to see, what you are, whether you're authentic, whether it's a fly by night, whether it's a really good product. Then they go to social, and they want to look at how you're approaching social, and then they go to Amazon to make their first purchase. And again, I'm not against Amazon. We manage a lot of Amazon accounts, and Amazon is sort of, a necessary part of the equation, because people trust it. They know they're not going to get their credit card information stolen. They know that if they have a problem, they're going to get their money back, which they don't know with you. But if they do their first or second try on Amazon buying your product, then you have to figure out how to get those people back to you, right? So you can form a connection with them. And that's something that we've been working on since 2006 with Amazon, how to get those customers back. And we have a lot of tricks on how we do it that are all legitimate and don't break Amazon's rules. But I want to say that so they don't kick us off. But anyway, it all has to go together. Like your whole piece, what you do from an SEO perspective, how your site looks, what you do on social, your affiliate programs, all these pieces have to work together. And too many times we went into a big company one time. They called us up and they wanted us to come in and talk. And, the person managing the website was different than the person selling on the website, which was different than the people doing Amazon, which was different than the people doing affiliate. And I'm thinking, well, how does that work? Because who's the overall coordinator? Because what that says to me is your website's going to sort of be different than this and different than this, and Amazon's going to be different, and all needs to flow together. So
how do you manage those different touch points too? Because of course you want to hit them in all of these different places, and if everyone's doing it differently, then you're not even ensuring that.
Well, I think sometimes what happens, and again, when businesses get so big, sometimes they get so comfortable and complacent that they stop tracking the right metrics, and then something goes wrong. That'll work for a little while, maybe work for 3 or 4 years, but then eventually something happens. And then everything starts to the bricks start to fall apart. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, well, it's the economy. No, it's not. You lost the connection to the customer. You lost your connection to the customer. I mean, you look at what's happening. Everybody's jumping all over Kohl's right now because Kohl's had a terrible last couple of years. They just hired the guy who turned around Michael's to come in, and the outgoing CEO, instead of doing the usual thing, which they usually say, oh, the economy, oh, it's this or that, he said, these are the things I did wrong. And he outlined it, and he was 100% right. He did, whereas the guy from the CEO that's at Michael's now is going to Kohl's, his plan was really coordinating everything together. He built like this website that was sort of an Etsy knockoff for the creators that buy from Michael's, and making it easier for them to get on, create and sell, which I thought was a very smart thing to do. And
That's
then,
genius.
yeah, he's opened up all the touch points for the consumers and the buyers, and he really put it all together. And so not having all these disparate functions. So anyway.
I think that's really important. And I think there's so many different strategies that you can involve people. And Michael's especially is such a specific example that has so many avenues that you can go down, because of course it's a craft store. You can use so many different influencers that already do crafts and already purchase items to involve their crafts with Michael's, and just have them explain that they get it from that place. But it's even with Kohl's, something that I think is that kind of came up recently with me is that I had never really heard of, I'd never really heard about Old Navy in the past several years. And I think that's one of a similar brand that kind of died a little bit. I definitely went there a lot as a child. But It just wasn't really in my headspace for many years, and I don't think I ever considered going there. But recently, I think their marketing has been incredible.
Yeah.
I see their ads. They're actually promoting different styles that I've never seen before. I feel like they had the same style for like 15 years. They never adjusted to trends. Um, and I think it's just so interesting. I always wonder who the marketing coordinator or the marketing director or their CMO, whoever, whatever position it is that is contributing to the success or this reach, because it's so interesting that a big brand can do something for so long and just, not really improve upon it because, oh, it's working. We have loyal customers and they think brand loyalty is enough.
Yeah.
But they don't see the other option of that. You can just get that much better. Like you can maybe you can keep you can rely on brand loyalty for so long, but you're not increasing your revenue. You're just staying stagnant for so long, and that's not really, okay. Like that's fine if that's
Yeah.
okay with you. But big brands, I think, just think that they can depend on that, and they don't try to improve their brand model. Where it's like that's just as important as a startup.
Yeah. I think you always have to have the startup mentality.
Mhm.
I don't care how big you get, you have to always have a startup mentality, because I think that's where it goes wrong. Everybody wants to build this big monument to a business. But now the big thing over the holidays, the big debates that are going on is the strong use of AI to create commercials.
Mhm.
Coca-Cola has done one this year, and it was a traditional commercial that they did, but it's sort of rebuilt in AI, which I think Coca-Cola can pull it off,
Yeah.
because in the past,
Mhm.
Coca-Cola has done some animations and other things with their ads, so they've been creative. Where I think it goes wrong is, and I'm not against AI, I use it all, we use it tremendously. We just don't use it for certain things because it becomes inauthentic and it doesn't do well. But the Coca-Cola one, that was AI assisted. It was not a complete, everybody has this idea where you just set it up, push a button, and boom, out comes your commercial. And it doesn't. You need that creative, you need a creative eye. Like we use AI. Do we use AI to build ads? Somewhat, somewhat. We do have some video creation tools that are AI driven, but the content that goes into those tools is real. It's not fake.
Mhm.
Everything that I see, and believe me, I use it every day. And when you produce images through AI, they just look totally fake. And you can't take a brand. We're a consumer product company, consumer product focused agency, and you cannot put AI driven images in front of somebody for a consumer product. You need to have real images. Can you use AI to enhance? Can you use AI to build video? Yes, absolutely. But you have to start with really good creative. Because if you don't have that, and you have to have somebody who's really good creative thinking about what the end output is. You can't just, we had a client that we took over recently who was using one of these AI ad companies that advertises on Facebook. Just plug us in and we create the ads and send them out and all that stuff. And they did it, and it was a complete disaster. Not only was it a disaster, but we're almost stripping down the website because nobody can figure out. They put all these JavaScript codes on the site, and it's a disaster trying to get them off. We can't get them off. So it was not good. It was not a good experience, and they're one of the biggest ones. But I think that having the tools, developing real creative, and then using the tools available to do other things with that creative, I think is the key to using AI.
I definitely agree with that. I think that a lot of people are kind of worried about AI for that specific reason. And I think it's fair. I think that AI should be used as a tool right now because that's what it is. It's not
Yeah.
here. I think the worry in the beginning was that it was going to replace people, and I really don't think it's there. You can have someone that's very strong in their role, and that tool will make them that much stronger. but it's not something that you can rely on for an entire position. It is, you need to proofread it. It's like a student's work. Like you need to, it's not going to be perfect. It's actually similar to a person in the idea that it's not going to be perfect, but it's only similar in that one way. It's not it's not something that you can rely on for something that is going to undoubtedly yield results. You need to be
100%.
able to have someone that's good in their role have an effective solution to that problem, and then use this as making it that much better and elevating it.
100%. You know, there's a guy on social media that advertises that he could write a book in an hour, and he could. It's just that the book won't be any good. You know, I could write a book with AI in an hour too. Or you can write the book and then put it through any number of tools. You know, there's a million GPTs out there that'll clean it up, make it look better, even grammarly to a certain extent, and then make sure that the grammar is correct and the punctuation, but the book is yours, right? And I'm believe me, I'm doing another book myself. I've written 3, but I'm going to do another one. And, you know, I'm not, I can't write it. I can't just put in a prompt into ChatGPT and say, write this book. It's just not going to work.
It's going to be a load of crap.
Yeah. And then I have a friend who just started this app where, because I do a show, and it'll take the script from the show, turn it into a blog post, and then create the image, which is great, right? And it does create the blog post pretty, the post pretty well. But the images, I think, are just terrible. DALL-E, DALL-E 3.0 or DALL-E 3.0 Max or whatever it is now I just don't see it, and we haven't been able to use them, and so we still rely on real images. Now, do we use AI to enhance images? Absolutely. Do we use AI to enhance video? Absolutely. Do we use AI to construct a video with given assets? Absolutely. But I think AI gets you 60% of the way there. You need a human creative to get you the other 40%.
100%. And I think people being wary of AI also gets in the way of, if you are relying on it, people that are used to working with it will know. And I don't think that that's a good look, especially if you're using it, to create your entire website. I can tell that a website is AI generated in less than 5 seconds. It's not hard. I can tell that a LinkedIn post is AI generated in less than 5 seconds. It's not, you see it enough, you can pick it out. I can tell a review is AI generated. It's the way that it's not a person. People don't talk like that. People don't look like that. Words don't look like that. It's just and you have to, like, people are going to wise up to this idea, and people do want a human-centered approach to things. I think that'll always be a thing. AI is going to get to a point where I think people will want that even more. Because it's just not, people want human connections, people want care. A robot cannot do that. And that's the equivalent of what it is. And it can, computers are efficient and lovely, and again, exactly what you said, they can enhance things, but it's not your end all be all thing. It's not a person, it's not a CEO, it can't do that, and it can't form its own opinions.
No, you're right, but it is a useful tool. We've been doing stuff with it for years, but
it's incredibly useful. I think, there's definitely just a line that everyone has to understand. And I think that once you do, then you can just use it the way that it's meant to be used for at least this point in time. I'm sure it'll advance to an incredible feat that will worry me. But right now, it's very nice. It's a great thing. It makes summaries for my podcasts. I appreciate that very much. I used to do that myself, and that was horrific and time consuming. So I appreciate it.
No, it advances every day. So.
But humans do too. That's important.
Yeah.
Well, this is unfortunately all the time we have today. We're a little over, but I like to say that that's only because we had a great conversation, and that's always what I hope to have.
Okay. Yeah.
So I
No,
really
it's
appreciate
been
you.
fun. Yeah, my
Thank,
pleasure. I
thank
enjoyed
you so
having
much.
I enjoyed thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this opportunity. This was an incredibly knowledgeable conversation, and I think that our audience will learn a lot from you. So I really appreciate that again.
Yeah, hopefully.
No, definitely. Don't even worry. But thank you so much again. And thank you for everyone watching or listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can see more stories like this, learn more like I get to do on every podcast. That's the hope for everything that I ever do. So thank you so much again.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.